All right. Thank you for joining us for game 2. This is Andy versus Michael. Andy still playing the placebo of fast first rush, and Michael.
Not quite.
Ah,
Placebo of Firstpath.
damn it! I almost sounded professional.
And Michael is LTC Beslight Perez. What is LTC? That's a military shortening, right?
Yes.
Let's see.
Let's see. Looks like Andy is going first on this one. Andy, of course, unfortunately losing his last round. And it looks like both players are mulliganing. So when you mulligan, typically what are you looking for, or what don't you want to see in your opening hand?
That's always extremely subjective to the deck. Some cards in the previous video, for example, you mentioned, what was it, Crown for Bumsy or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
No, not Bumsy. But anyway, you wanted him to be late game when the opponent has established his board, because that's when he gets his most value. And mulliganing gives you such a small hit to your cards in hand. You know, it takes away the one, but that's not much. Whereas the power of getting cards out when you need them is huge. So it's definitely worth it to, if your hand is full of your late game cards, just put them back. Just try again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one of the things I really like about this game is that it absolutely does not punish you for mulliganing. It actually actively rewards you, because at the end of your turn, you fill your hand back up to 6.
No matter how many you put down, which is the difference between this and some games. So the Terror is a card that you really want in your opening hand. Bam! You've got a big creature and some amber, because they didn't have the ability to even have amber before you can put them down.
Mm-hmm. Shadow Self coming down. I always find the Shadow Self to be a really interesting creature. Sometimes I'm not sure if I want to put down the Shadow Self first, or if I want to put down the creature that I want the Shadow Self to protect first. If they're both out of shadows, then it doesn't matter. But this is a question of, say, if you have a Hunting Witch, do you play the Shadow Self and then the Hunting Witch, or do you play the Hunting Witch, get what you can when you can, and then hope it sticks around long enough for Shadow Self to protect?
Yeah, that's maybe not with Shadow Self in particular, but with other kinds of protectors as well. That's a subject that has been discussed, various arguments on both sides. Bumped into that before.
It looks like a Yo Mama mastery on the Terror. Interesting choice.
Disc creatures are not able to talk, so I'm not sure how it can make a Yo Mama joke.
Various obscene gestures, I would assume.
Disc creatures don't always have hands. How do they make gestures?
Tentacles. Okay, Dr. Escotera coming down.
So Andy's opponent in this round is Michael Standfest of the Standfest clan. Sometimes we get 6 of them showing up all at once.
Wow. I don't think I've played a single one of them. Dr. Escotera. This is a very interesting card. This is a card that I think right now is extremely underrated, simply because a lot of people look at it and they feel as though they have to sit on it, or they have to wait for their opponent to have 2 keys forged in order to really get the most value they can out of the creature. But the thing that a lot of people don't recognize is that a creature in your hand is a creature that's not doing work for you.
It's true. Not only is it not gaining the simple benefits that it could do from doing 4 damage from reaping, but it's also preventing you from getting more cards. It is worth it to drop Dr. Escotera. He could probably get more from reaping than he could from just waiting for keys in that time span.
Andy playing, that's a Crump and a Grenade Snib. 2 cards that are always entertaining to see. The harder they come, telling Crump to go take a hike.
The harder they fall. Not just removed, Crump is purged. Purge is one of those effects that is only conditionally worth anything. Like, there's a decent chance that Andy would never have got his card back anyway. But why not purge it? Why not?
I absolutely understand the ability to purge a card gives me great peace of mind, if for no other reason than the fact that I know for a fact that if they have anything that lets them go rummaging through their discard pile, or if they manage to cycle through their deck, I won't have to worry about that particular card again.
Indeed. And then, of course, we have Annihilation Ritual. Anything that's removed from play is purged.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that doesn't actually do anything. But against someone who has like a Witch of the Eye or Regrowth,
That does a lot of work. Let's see. Andy going Shadows, playing an Urchin to steal an Ember, and then a Ghostly Hand to steal 2 more.
Okay, so the Terror can't talk, and you were talking about gestures. Now it's wearing a Ring of Invisibility. He can't see the gestures.
Well, nobody can see the gestures now. Ring of Invisibility is the upgrade that gives a creature both elusive and skirmish, making it just a real delight to deal with.
So the Terror currently has Taunt. It's protecting the Grenade Snib, but not actually protecting anything that you'd want to protect.
Mm-hmm. Seems to be some confusion on Michael's end.
Yeah.
He initially played Seeker Needle thinking it was an action, which,
Yeah.
to be fair, I have made that same mistake.
Oh yeah, he's newer to the game. He doesn't do this for a living like we do. And it's often difficult to spot an artifact. I think that's the number one thing that I see people do mistakenly is play an artifact as an action.
Mm-hmm. Shadow Self taking a total of 6 damage from the Poison Wave. That is a great way to deal with a Shadow Self, in my opinion. Michael using that Shadow Self just to reap.
I suppose that was a questionable play. He got rid of the Grenade Snib and an Urchin in exchange for hitting himself pretty decently. But it's an Amber and a card out of hand. Grenade Snib's no longer a threat for later on, when it actually matters.
Yep. So now here's a good question. Who do you think has board advantage right now? I mean, Andy has the big honking terror, which is going to be really difficult to kill, but he has to deal with 3 Sanctum creatures plus a Shadow Self.
Yes, it is going to take him some time, but I suspect that he'll keep whittling Michael, because I think that one thing that you can't count on Michael doing here, which is always an interesting decision, is Is he going to use his board, or are they just going to maybe get a use if he happens to choose that house because he's playing cards for that house?
Hmm.
That's something that differentiates players.
I would agree. That's something that took me a long time to figure out was, do I continue to develop my board, or do I use what I have and just make the most of it?
Right. So it's entirely possible that despite having those wonderful Sanctum guys out there, he's just going to keep choosing, I don't know, logos or so on, just to get the cards out of hand. And in that
Hmm.
case, his board presence doesn't matter because he's not using it.
It looks like Michael has a Bulwark and a Cleansing Wave in hand, which
Has enticed him to use all of his many Sanctum.
this is good. Gaining 2 Ember off of the Cleansing Wave. Let's see if he's going to use that Protectrix to heal itself.
If he had used that Guardian to smack something of Andy's, could he have gotten more out of that Cleansing Wave?
I don't think so. The both the Guardian, the Gatekeeper, and the Protectrix have a power of 5, and Andy,
Oh, he
uh,
has Taunt on that Terror, though.
yeah, and it has Elusive. Looks like he did end up using that Protectrix to heal itself. Always a smart play. I'm gonna
Rock
be.
on, Michael. That was a good turn.
That was a great turn. Got himself on check, and he managed to heal. Andy just saying no. Andy has 4 Ember. Michael has 6. They should each end with 4 total.
How do you do bait and switch math really quickly? What's your
Uh,
way?
I take the total number of Ember between myself and my opponent, and I just divide it by 2. And if there's a remainder, that typically goes to the person who played the bait and switch. Well, it always goes to the person who played the bait and switch. Typically, that's me. Let's see. Andy playing a Poison Wave, and then a Bad Penny. This is gonna be interesting.
I like that taunt protecting the Guardian Demon. You can get a lot of mileage out of a Guardian Demon that way.
Hmm. Yeah, Andy's in a very interesting position right now. He's gonna have to figure out if he wants to go Dis again and heal that terror with the Guardian Demon, and then where would he put the damage?
I wonder. Oh, it says, okay. So I had a rules question that I just solved for myself. Guardian Demon says deal that amount of damage to another creature, not move it. So the armor on a Sanctum creature would reduce the damage that it was given dealt.
Yep, and that's one of the things that I really feel Sanctum has going for it, is they're one of the few houses with creatures that consistently have armor. All
That's Andy's
right.
ringtone.
Let's see. What is Andy gonna do? Really, if he wants to use what he has on the board, he has to go Dis. That would give him an opportunity to take out the Dr. Escatera, capturing 1, but that unfortunately would not take his opponent off of their key. He could use the Terror to assassinate a Protectrix, and in addition to the 1 captured by Guardian Demon, that would allow him. No, that still wouldn't allow him to take his opponent off a key. So we're gonna see what happens. Hebe. This is about the time I would like to see a Hebe, just not with this many Sanctum creatures on the board.
And he also recently played Poison Wave. I wonder if it was his intention all along to do Poison Wave, get himself Hebe-proof, and then Hebe.
It could be. I don't know for a fact though, because Hebe will only damage undamaged creatures, but Hebe will also deal 2 damage. So it's a Hebe is kind of like a poison wave that's just very targeted.
The Bulwark, of course, protected that entire half of the board from any Hebes and Poison Waves.
Unfortunately, I think Michael is in a really good position. If I were him, I would just sit there and go Sanctum and reap 5 times every turn until my opponent can deal with what I have.
And indeed, so far he's finding reasons to play Sanctum.
So if you were sitting across the board and you were in Andy's position, how would you deal with this? What would you do?
A lot of crying would happen first. I mean, we've seen Andy's deck list. We know that he has a couple things in there, but mainly his removal is Hebe and Poison Waves and Fire Spitters, and none of that does anything to armor. Well, it dinks the armor, but doesn't get through it. We know that Andy's deck has a Hand of Dees and 3 Fates. So he's not completely out here. Better approach might be to just start swinging.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to get the Protectrixes out of the way.
Yep. And in order to get rid of the Protectrixes first right now, you have to get rid of the Bulwark.
Bulwark on that side, Anafiel with Taunt on the other side.
Let's see. Andy looks like 2, 4, 6, 8. And he managed to take Michael off of his key between the Flame Fist. The Flame Fist took him off the key, and then the next turn he ended up going this. Yeah. And he's making his moves. This is a
Invisible Terror takes a swing at Bulwark. That is pretty terrifying.
So let's see. It looks like if we can take a look at Michael's hand, I saw a Shadow Self. What else did we see? I believe we saw there's an Anomaly Exploiter as well. I think we're rapidly approaching a point in the game where we're going to hit a what I like to call a critical juncture. And these are points that will really decide how a game will go from here on out. And unless Andy can deal with that massive Sanctum line in the next couple of turns, he's rapidly going to find himself outpaced for Ember.
Indeed, we can see it happening right now before our very eyes. Andy had such a nice turn, felt like he was making progress, and then now Michael's got that pile of Ember.
He's got 10 Ember. He has not even played a single card out of his hand. It's nothing but Shadows and Logos. Andy is definitely playing from a disadvantage right now.
Knowing your deck is important. Knowing what to look for can inform the choices that you make. Like if you know you have a solution in that deck, the perfect, I don't know, gateway to Dis or whatever. 3 Fates in this case. You might play a bunch of cards just to increase your ability to draw in the hopes that you get that solution.
Mm-hmm. Three Fates is going to take care of Anafiel, Hebe, and it looks like Andy has selected the Protectrix that is under the Bulwark's protection to be eliminated. Because two of Michael's creatures were destroyed, the pile of skulls kicks in again. I always I always have mixed feelings when I see Brobnar and Dis together. I feel like they play relatively well, but I feel like there are some cards out of Dis, for example, Three Fates, which really don't synergize well with the rest of what Brobnar or Dis wants to do, which is to put big scary things on the board or small scary things on the board and terrorize your opponent.
I see where you're coming from on that, yeah. Robner often does damage to your own guys, so anti-synergy by killing all your precious Dis creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Dis wants to kill big guys, aka Brobnar creatures. So the tables turned really quickly there. Managed to take out some key pieces of the Sanctum lineup. And now Michael is challenged to try and catch up or lose the game.
Mm-hmm. But I think he's, well, I don't think he's in that good of a position right now. We see the Nerve Blast, and I believe that's
in there.
Yeah, Nerve Blast, Oubliette, and Shadow Self.
These are not exquisite board development options at this point.
They aren't, but that Nerve Blast will take Andy off of his key. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to do enough. Dealing 2 to the Succubus. Now here's the question, would you do it to the Succubus or the Toxin? Or would you eliminate the Schuler and know that your work has been well done?
I would go for the Succubus. He has to go Dis in order to utilize the Toxin. It turns out he was going to take them both out anyway. But Succubus uses her effect no matter what house you choose.
Mm-hmm.
So of the two, she's the more influential one.
All right. Andy sitting at 2 keys and 5 Ember. Michael sitting at 2 keys and 4 Ember.
It's very close.
Andy playing a Rise. I think this is the game.
Was that worth the chains, Chase? Would you finally say something was worth the chains?
Oh, I think lots of cards are worth the chains. I just don't think playing an Arise for a single Succubus is worth it, though. Although, that is a good question. I can absolutely make arguments for both. Andy just murdering the line.
So Andy's got 2 cards that have been purged. Yeah? Were they both Beast creatures? I don't remember what the first one was.
The first one was a Harder They Come.
And which purged something.
It purged something. I don't remember what it was.
So I was wondering if Andy played that Arise just now, forgetting that some of them were purged and not destroyed.
That is interesting. Somebody bumping the camera, apparently.
I feel my brain jiggling with that one.
Andy forging his 3rd key. Andy wins.
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes when it comes under the wire like that, it's either, could you stop my Amber, or did I win?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some decks that don't really do anything with Amber. Purely race-based decks.
Yep, and I think those type of decks are they're always interesting and fun to come across, because then you get to see if your deck can keep pace with them or if your deck can shut them down. And I always think that that's a good thing to know, whether it be, if you have a true racing deck and you can keep pace with, a deck that can generate between 5 and 10 Ember in a turn, or if you have different ways and different methods of eliminating their Ember, stealing it, melting it, capturing it, whatever it be, just so that you can keep your own tempo and force them to interact with you as well.
Yes. There are many attributes that go into what a deck can do. That was one of the selling points of Keyforge. For me, at least.
Oh, and it's one of my favorite points as well. All right. Well, I believe that's all for this video. Stick around. The next one is indeed right around the corner.